can one rationally hold that Jesus did not rise from the dead? Some people just say, well, a resurrection would be something that's supernatural and that's by definition irrational. Or they say it's contrary to the laws of nature, therefore it would be irrational to believe that kind of thing. So some people reject the resurrection of Jesus very quickly. That's clearly not rational. There is no such principle which makes it rational to reject out of hand any evidence for a miracle. So in order to form a rational belief about the resurrection, one has to consider the evidence. And indeed, many people who rejected the resurrection of Jesus try to avoid that. They try to avoid to get into the business of evaluating the evidence. They wanted to rule it out of hand. And that's clearly not a rational approach to the resurrection of Jesus, as I think everybody should agree. So we have to examine the evidence and we have to form a view. And in order to reject the... now, of course, if one doesn't know the evidence, it's quite rational to reject the resurrection of Jesus. That's obvious too. The challenge is to look at the evidence and to really get informed before one forms a judgment about it. And if one knows the evidence, if one has read a little bit about it, what we know today, then one has to take into account, if one wants to reject the resurrection of Jesus, in particular, what we are told about the disciples. Not what we are told, but what all the evidence that we have about what the disciples believed about the resurrection. And the result is, first, that the disciples believed in the resurrection. Now, already that statement is something that needs to be taken into account, because a belief is also something that needs to be explained. One cannot simply say, well, that's just, they were irrational people and we know that, and we don't need to take that into account. No, if somebody comes to believe something, that doesn't happen very easily. You have to give an explanation if you discover that somebody believed something. You may come up with an explanation saying, well, he wasn't very thorough in his investigation, and he had some kind of psychological process, how he came up with that. But you need some kind of, or even better, you come up with a kind of explanation how he was deceived. If you investigate what somebody believed, you better investigate also what he believed was true. So the challenge for the one who rejects the resurrection of Jesus is to explain why the disciples believed in the resurrection of Jesus, although he did not rise from the dead. Because, of course, if Jesus did rise from the dead, that gives you an explanation why they believed in the resurrection of Jesus.